start. So any questions before we move forward? Hi. I have switched on fan. If the background noise is too much, let me know. Any questions before we move forward? Okay, so if there are no questions, so we will, how many people are there? 43 people are here now. So I will just wait like around 3 p.m. or so to sort of discuss the midterm exam timings because few people might be joining late. Okay, so if there are no questions, so I would like to, I would like to start with this R code I have just sent this morning. I hope all of you have R and RStudio installed on your computers. Okay. Let me share the screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Going to turn towards my big screen and switch off my video. Otherwise, I will be like looking in this random direction. Okay. Okay. So all of you can see this. So as I had already sent one note asking you all to read about how do we numerically integrate, okay, a differential equation. Okay, in our context, differential equations correspond to population models. So how do we numerically integrate them? So what does it first of all mean to numerically integrate? Is that idea clear to everyone? If that is not clear, maybe should I just explain that briefly? So much of silence.
You are asking for like what does numerical integration mean?
Do you all understand what it means? Yes, yes.
So actually we find the value of function at each point in time. So we take some initial guess and initial value, and from that we, using the derivative, we compute the next point.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Was that idea clear to everyone? I hope everybody went through the document. One sort of, I think one web page I had sent. I'd also sent this code last week itself, and I have sent it again today. I hope you had a chance to go through. So maybe just to make sure everybody's on the same page, what I will do is I will actually quickly cover that, fairly briefly though. Okay. So what is the purpose and motivation for doing this? Okay. Okay, so let us say, so we have been working with this equation for quite some time, right? Oh, sorry. I don't know why that screen is so sensitive. So this is a general form of differential equation that tells how n is changing over time. If n is population density or population size, how is it changing over time, right? At any given point of time, the growth rate is given by the function f. So if we know the growth rate, the question is, do we know what happens in the next time instant? That's the basic question. So now think of simple instances, the very first model that we wrote that looked like this, right? The most basic model we wrote was this. And for this, it is possible to integrate this expression exactly and write what exactly is the value of n at every point in time in the future, if we know the value of r and if we know the initial condition n0, right? Okay. And even if you know the value of n at any point in time, if you know this equation is true, then we can exactly write down how n will change over time. Okay. Now, likewise, if you know dn by dt, consider the logistic model now, which has slightly more complex term. So, of course, it turns out that even for this model, it is possible to write down an expression like this, except that the expression is slightly more, algebraically ugly. So, but it is possible to write down an expression like this. But now, as we're adding more terms, the last class we had a term like this, right? Integration becomes harder and harder. In fact, for many cases, the integration might be basically impossible to do. So, of course, what we have been doing so far is, hey, look, I'm not going to care about how the exact trajectory of n over time. Okay, but what we are interested in is, what are the equilibrium points? And we know how to find the equilibrium points. For that, we just set f of n to 0. Okay, that's the strategy we have been adopting so far, and then we look at stability of the equilibrium. But however, in many cases, we do want to know how n changes over time. Okay, and we do want to plot that in changing over time. There may be something interesting to calculate from those as well. Okay, so in that context, as I said, there is no general way to solve this equation analytically. So what we have to do often is resort to numerical solutions. So what does it mean? We just use computers and we know the meaning of derivative, and then we use that fact. So how do we do it? This is the basic idea. We know that the left-hand side is the growth rate, dn by dt. So what is dn by dt? Dn by dt basically is limit of the difference between population sizes over a very small interval of time divided by that interval of time, right? So when this delta t goes to 0, this expression is exact, which means that we can actually approximate the left-hand side, assuming delta t is very tiny. I can write it in the following fashion. Is that right? And we do know what is the governing equation. The governing equation for the population is this. So what we can now do is we can multiply both sides by delta t and move nt to the right hand side. Is that clear? Which means that for an equation of this type, differential equation of this type, if I know the growth rate function, and if I know the population size at time t, I can project the population size to a next time step delta t, where delta t is very small. By this simple equation. So I know the previous population, right? That's nt. And then we know the growth rate, and growth rate depends on n itself. So we calculate the growth rate at that point in time, and we multiply it by delta t. So I know the increment that will be, this basically corresponds to the increment in the population size or decrement in the population size, depending on whether f is positive or negative. Okay, so this is basically the change in the population size between time interval t and t plus delta t. And from that, I find the population sizes t plus delta t, and then you just keep on doing this iterating. And therefore, starting with some value at time t is equal to 0, I can project the population size over a function of time. Okay, this is the basic idea behind numerically solving a differential equation. Okay. Any questions on this?
So I had one question. So,
Yeah.
so when we do it this way, does it mean that we need to have non-overlapping generations?
Absolutely not, because delta t can be as small as possible. In fact, I'm saying
Right,
delta t
right.
must be small. So in fact you basically transition to a non-overlapping or a discrete time population if delta t was comparable to a generation time. So here, in fact, what we're saying is delta t must be much smaller than that. Because of births and deaths are continuously happening over time. Which means that if you take delta t is equal to 1 here, will you get right results or wrong results for this equation? So for this equation, you'll get really wrong results if you take delta t of the order of 1. You must take delta t much smaller. Okay. And in fact, how small is actually an interesting question. And there is one way to think about this is, we remember what is the, do you remember the, the discussion we had on return rate to equilibrium? How fast does the equilibrium, a perturbation decay, right? Right, you make sure that this delta t is much smaller than that time scale we had. Okay, that's one way to think about whether delta t is small enough or not for your system. Okay.
Sir, I had a small doubt from last class.
Sure. Yes.
So
any questions on this before we go forward, though?
Okay, nothing.
Any other questions on this by anybody?
Yeah, so this method we are just using to integrate n over t.
Hey, just 1 second, I'll come back in 1 minute. Okay, just 1 second. Hi, yes, please tell me. Sorry.
So are there other numerical methods which you can use to integrate this, or like is this iterative method the only one that you have?
So basically all of them are iterative methods. So what I have shown you is the crudest iterative method. This is also called, I think, Euler's first order method. It's the most crudest method. And for those who are mathematically inclined, the error here is of the order of delta t square, primarily because I am ignoring all the corrections that will arise from delta t square kind of terms. Okay, this is also called Euler's method. There is a very simple modification to this that will give you errors in the next order, which is delta t cube. Okay, it's a fairly straightforward method, I know, but I won't go into that. That basically involves thinking of taking derivatives between delta, splitting this into 2 ways, t plus delta t, and also think of t and then t minus delta t. So then you can actually get one more correction term better than this. And then there are other methods called, the most famous one is Runge-Kutta fourth order method. Okay? But in fact, there are actually routines that are available in most of the packages you will use. If you are using R, for example, if you're using Python, there will be ODE solvers, and they actually can implement all of these for you without much effort. Okay. So you just tell what the differential equation is, they will just solve it for you. Okay, they will even adaptively find what is a good delta t, what is the value, what is the right choice for delta t. But we're not going to use any of them. And the more, I think those methods you usually learn them in computational methods in if you're doing SCRC or physics department and so on. Yeah. But in fact, if you are solving an ordinary differential equation, I do recommend that you eventually use them. But for the purpose of our class, we are happy with this. And there is a good reason which you will learn very soon. Hopefully by tomorrow, I think. Why we won't work harder on using something like RK flow methods. Yeah, some question by somebody. Habib Shami.
The
Sir,
delta
yeah.
T value.
Sorry.
Delta T, sorry.
Delta T value is dependent on both growth rate and initial population density, right? This small delta T value. If
yeah.
you're considering it to be less than decay time of perturbation.
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. So basically, two things to consider in mind. So dt must be less than 1. That's a useful starting point.
Okay.
Okay. That's one starting point. And dt must be also less than, modulus of f prime at the equilibrium values. I think as the inverse of this one. Okay. This is just small space here. It must be less than. See, remember that f prime n star has a unit of 1 over time, right? So take inverse of this. So you get a time scale now. So you will have many equilibrium for this system, possibly, right? One way to ensure the dt is much less than the smallest of this f prime n stars. Okay, and it is actually technically possible that the smallest of the f prime n star is maybe 10. In which case, using delta t is equal to 1 may also be okay. Okay, but the general rule of thumb is keep it less than 1. And in fact, I often start with 0.01. That's and if you write the times, if you have a normalized equation, usually the basic time scale often becomes of the order of 1 unit. Okay, and therefore in the normalized equation, the rescaled equation, 0.01 is a good starting point. Yeah, more questions?
Sir, but keeping t close to 1 is actually harmful, right? Because the error will then propagate really fast.
Absolutely,
so we should ideally keep as
yes.
small as possible.
Yes, absolutely right. Yes, you're right. Yeah. So basically, because there are always correction terms of delta t square and higher order, right? So anything more than 1 will just lead to a huge error, no matter what. But never exceed 1 is one useful principle. But also make sure that you're less than the characteristic time of the model. Okay. So any questions? So somebody now had a question on the previous class, so we can take that question.
So yeah, in the previous class you drew the bifurcation diagram, right?
Yeah.
You drew only like 2 bifurcation points there, but shouldn't there be 3? Because there's one point where there are 2 solutions.
Okay, let's go to the previous class. Okay, here.
Yeah, at some point of H you have 2 solutions, right? Instead of just 1, like other than 0.
So for 0, when you have 0, there are 2 solutions. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
When you have 0, these are 2 solutions, this and this. And as I'm increasing H, there are 2 solutions, 2, 2, 2. And then they become 3 at some point of time. That's the first bifurcation point. When 2 becomes 3.
Yeah, 2 becomes 3.
That's the green bifurcation point here, H is equal to 1. Okay. And then there are 3 equilibrium points. One of them is unstable. The middle one is unstable. These 2 are stable, stable, stable. And then at HC, you again go back to 2 equilibrium points. Okay. And in fact, beyond that, you go from 3 to 2 at the bifurcation point to actually 1. Okay.
So that red, blue, and black are the 3 equilibrium points. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So if there are no questions, let's go to the R. Oh. Okay. So this is the R code that implements that simple, Euler's algorithm I just mentioned. Okay. So this is the structure of the code. In the initial stage, I have just defined all the functions we use. Okay. So first, the logistic function, it takes 3 inputs: the population size, the intrinsic growth rate, and K, carrying capacity, and it returns the logistic growth rate. or n times 1 minus n by k. Fine. And then I have now a harvesting function, which is Holling's type 1 response. So I call it Holling 1. It just takes n as the input and returns n. It doesn't do anything. It basically same as n. Okay. Then I have defined Holling 2 function, okay, which takes n as the input and it returns n divided by 1 plus n. So basically, I don't have to do this. I can write this in a more general way. I can keep it n0. Okay. And then I can also define n0 here. Okay. They're both same. What I've done is now I've just generalized it. I also hope that you all have this code with you, because I would like you to work on this now. Okay, so this is the Holling 2. We can also do Holling 3. Let's also define Holling 3. Okay, let's not do it right now. Let's just, I will let you do this. Okay, so now I have also defined various parameters. I have assumed R is equal to 1. I have assumed carrying capacity K is equal to 10. I have assumed some arbitrary value of H0 to be 2. Okay, and I have assumed that N0 is 1. Okay, this is half saturation constant. Okay, and then now so this is all function definitions up to this point. Now we need to numerically evaluate and calculate how n changes over time. That requires you to tell computer how long do you want to run. The capital T is the total simulation time. So you please run this for 100 time units. Okay, and then I have chosen dt to be 0.01, meaning each one time unit is divided into 100 smaller intervals. Okay, and therefore the number of iterations will be, so each one time unit will have 100. Therefore the total time t will have t divided by dt, which in this case will be 10,000 iterations. Is that fine? So far all the parameters are fine. So we have defined functions and parameters. We have also defined simulation parameters. Okay. Okay. Next. So next what I'm doing is, I have defined a vector here. It's basically x is now a space to hold all the values of population over time. Okay. So numeric is a type of definition in R. When I say x numeric n iter, what that will do is it will create space for x in the memory, which is of the size n iter. N iter in this case is 10,000. So x now has values all the way from x1, x2 up to x 10,000. Okay, and all of them are assigned by default a value of 0. Okay, so if you are not sure, I can just run this line. So you can go to this run here. It will run just that line. So you can see that all the values of x are 0, and the length of x is 10,000. Okay, and I am assuming that the initial population size is k, which is the carrying capacity, is equal to 10. So initial population size. Okay, I have defined that to be 10. So now this is the for loop that basically does this iteration of calculating what is the next population size given the current population size. Because I have defined for the first time unit, we now can calculate from 2 to 10,000. Okay. So basically what does this do? It finds the value of xt given xt minus 1. So xt minus 1 is the previous population size. And then there is a logistic growth, which is so there is a current population xt minus 1. We have defined r and k. So it's basically logistic growth times dt. It will tell you how many individuals were added or are deleted because of logistic growth. Okay. So if you start with k, what will this number be? What will be the logistic growth rate when when the population size is equal to k?
0.
0. So this actually contributes nothing in the first time iteration. Okay, but it actually can in the later ones. Okay, now there is a subtraction term, which is telling there is a death because of harvesting. Okay, so this is the death because of harvesting term. Holling 1 is what I have chosen as a starting point. it takes the value of t xt minus 1 and multiplies by dt to know how many individuals were removed. Okay, and that will give me xt, and then you just repeat this process up to n items. So this for loop would have calculated, okay, would have calculated all the values of population over time. And now I'm in the last two lines, I am creating a time vector which is from 0.01 to t at steps of 0.01. So let me just execute how this looks like. So basically t is basically all the time units. Okay, we start with 0.01, 0.02, it goes all the way to 100, but it's only outputting up to 10 because it's too long to output here. Okay, and now that we have done everything, the last line basically plots the results. Is that fine? So now when you have an R code, if you want to execute the entire code in one go, you can just press source. It will execute everything. It will also plot the results here. Okay. Let's change the values. Say H is, so remember what was the bifurcation point for the Hollings type 1 functional response? Hollings type 1 is basically linear. This one. Okay. What's the bifurcation point? Beyond which only extinction is the stable state. What is the bifurcation point?
H is greater than R.
H is equal to R is the bifurcation point. H greater than 0, H greater than R is not the bifurcation point. Bifurcation point is a point. So you should say H0 is equal to R is the bifurcation point. Is that right? So I have said H0 is equal to 2, whereas R is equal to 1. Okay. So which means that it's now greater than 1. Therefore, and not very surprisingly, the result we find is an extinction. Okay, let's reduce H0 to maybe half and then run. So now see, it does now go to equilibrium of actually 5. Okay, in fact, we had also derived how the equilibrium will change with H0, right? It was basically, if I understand correctly, it was H0 times K, I think, becomes sort of the equilibrium point. If I do 0.25, so it's either by 1 minus H0 times K, I think. Yeah. Okay.
So here K is in the carrying capacity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your written K as carrying capacity.
Yeah, K is the carrying capacity in the absence of.
In the absence of, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. With the harvesting, you will go less than carrying capacity. So the loss is, I think, K times H0, if I'm right. There is a reduction in the new carrying capacity is this. Okay, so basically this does for this actually helps you find the equilibrium. I can also now change it to Holling 2. Okay, Holling 2, does it require additional parameters to be passed? Okay, let's just keep it 1. That will just make life easy. Okay, we don't need. Let's just. I'm going to revert it back to the previous definition. Otherwise, I will have to have one more here. Okay. So now I can again do the same simulations. Okay. See, it's now very close to carrying capacity only. There's a small reduction because of H0. Okay, because H0 is very small. Let's make H0 1. A little bit smaller than this. Let's make H0 2. So do you remember what was the bifurcation point for this? If I go back to the class, I think it was K plus 1 whole square divided by 4K. Is that right? That was the bifurcation point. Right? HC is equal to K plus 1 divided by K plus 1 is to be 11. 11 square will be 121. 121 divided by 4 times K. Okay. 121 by 10 will be 12.1 divided by 4 will be some 3.025. Is that correct? That will be the, so basically up to 3, you should basically, find that system will have a fairly large, population density, less than K, but still large. Okay, 2.7. It's reducing as you're all observing. I don't know how fast the display is at your end. 2.9. 3. It is still not collapsing, right? 3.1. What should happen if my calculation was right? It should collapse. See, it did. It basically goes to 0, right? So the thing is, the difference is, let's do 0.05. It does again collapse. What about 0.01? See, now it was at a value of 5, around 5 again. 3.03 is not interesting. Okay, let's see what happens. 0.04. So I think 3.3 should also go, but I just should probably plot for longer, longer values. Let's say if I plot for 300. Yeah, so it does, right? So in fact, as somebody had found out and mentioned last time to me in one of the classes, when you are at the bifurcation point, it takes a very long time to reach equilibrium, right? And we discussed the phenomenon called, critical slowing down. Okay, and that's precisely what you're actually observing here. So 0 to, as you're it takes a really long time. At 0.025, even at 300, it hasn't actually. Let's see for 1,000 what happens. I don't know what happened. It didn't, right? What if it is 3.03? 3.03 does. So somewhere in between that value, 3.026, what happens?
It should be 3.025.
Yeah, is the critical point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it will still stay in the top branch if it is 3.025, I suppose. But 3.026, as you're seeing, actually it is collapsing, right? 0.55. It does collapse. See? So it's exact 3.05. It stays in the previous branch. Okay. So this is how the numerical simulations work. Okay. You can also do Hollings type 3 by defining a new function. Okay, which I will leave it as an exercise for you. So are you all comfortable with the code now? You should be able to run this on your own, on your laptops. Is that fine? Okay.
Yes.
I will stop sharing this now. I will now explain what is your assignment today. Okay. Okay. The lab assignment today. Oh. Okay. So what I would like you, so just think of what really happens in the real world, right? So what was I doing until now? I was fixing h to be a constant, right? And then I was starting with some initial condition. And then I was trying to find how n is changing over time, okay, until it reaches an equilibrium, right? Now, what you do is assume that h varies with time. Isn't that realistic? It's possible that there is a pristine area, okay, and where you begin harvesting, and therefore more people will join harvesting. So therefore, h harvesting rate can actually increase with time, right? It may also decrease with time in some places when people leave away, when the harvesters leave the leave that ecosystem and go somewhere else. Okay, so what I would like you to do is basically take this code and implement a scenario where h varies with time. Okay, and then plot n versus time. Okay, is the question clear?
How h varies with time, we can choose. I mean, like
Yes,
the
yes,
constant
please.
increase.
Absolutely, entirely up to you. You can try various things. Okay, you can even see if there are any interesting patterns to find. So start with h equal to 0. Okay, let's start with at t is equal to 0. Okay. And also that, n is equal to k. So you are at a pristine state, and h will now slowly increase with time, slowly, rapidly, that you decide. And what is the functional form you decide. Okay. So you'll have to modify the code to account for the fact that h is now a function of time. Okay. And then plot this, and also plot on the side, or maybe even in the same plot, how h is varying with time. Okay. And do this for both the model, Halling type 1 and Halling type 2. Okay. Is that fine? And then write down your observations. What do you find from it? And this might be a more realistic way of, right, trying to simulate collapse of an ecosystem. Is that right? For example, if you were to think of this, we were arguing last time, right? If h is increasing over time, you will find that population will sort of change gradually, but it might suddenly collapse. Okay, but whereas in this case it won't. It will just gradually go to extinction. So, but simulate both of these scenarios, but with h changing over time. That's your first assignment. Okay, for both type 1 and type 2 functional responses. And stick to the rescaled forms that we have. That way you have less parameters to worry, because you will be adding a parameter the moment you say h varies with time, right? So at least one parameter, right? Okay. So second thing I would like to do is, again, this is again, one realistic feature we have now incorporated is a parameter in the model actually is not a constant. It varies with time. Let's now try to make it more realistic by saying that there is also stochasticity. Okay. Okay, and think, how will you incorporate stochasticity? In which parameter will you incorporate stochasticity? Or how do you even think about incorporating stochasticity? How and where? Think about it, and then do the same thing. Simulate. Okay. And then again, I want to see a plot like this. Is that fine? Are the questions clear? So think of how will you incorporate stochasticity, in which parameter, in which variable. You have to think about all those, and then do simulations of the same.
Sir, should
And
we
we
do
had the
this for h varying with time as well, or?
Yes, that makes more sense, no? Because we want it is in stochasticity in addition to the previous realism we have introduced. So therefore, I would like that you keep h varying with time.
And do we have to do this for both type 1 and type 2?
Okay, maybe let's do the following. For the stochasticity, let's do only type 2 because we will run out of time otherwise. Type 2 only, okay? Is it fine? And then do the following way. Okay, there are two, let's divide this into two parts. Okay, part A, fix h to be constant, and then introduce stochasticity and see, okay, what happens, and then vary h with time. Okay, so I would be quite happy even if we just do this, because again, think about the following. The moment you introduce stochasticity, you're adding a parameter, right? Is that right? So so that actually will be useful. Okay, let me make, okay, there is a reason. Okay, now there's a small problem, you will see there is a funny problem that happens when you use type 2 functional form, but I think it's okay. No, that's fine. Let's stick to this. Let's not change this further. So fix h is equal to constant. The moment you introduce stochasticity, what additional parameters comes? Tell me what's the, there is some parameter about stochasticity that will come, right? What would that be? It's the how strong the stochasticity is, right? So there will be the parameter. Therefore, you'll have to now look at, different values of H and different values of strength of stochasticity and observe the dynamics in N versus T. I don't know if you will have enough time to go to B. Okay. So even doing it for different values of H and different values of sigma, and you will have two parameters, and then all the combinations will actually take your time. Okay. And then, I would like to basically see plots and your inferences. Okay. So basically, we're now trying to model more and more realistic features slowly. Okay. And when I say inferences, I want you to make inferences that are probably useful in understanding real ecological data sets. Okay. In that context, think in that context. Any questions?
So the type 2 model, we do not worry about the N0, right? Like we can.
Set is equal to 1, N0 is equal to 1, because I told you, as I said, you just stick to 3 scale versions. Yeah.
Okay.
Start with that. Yeah. Start with the same parameter values. K is equal to 10. R is equal to 1. N0 is equal to N0 is equal to 1, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So you see, in fact, in that model, if you have actually gone back and tried on your own, you will find that if K is less than 1, you will get again a continuous transition like this. You'll actually get something like this, but maybe a curved function. I don't remember if it is this kind of a curve or this kind of a curve. You will actually get so you can actually stick to type 2 model with different values of K and get this type of bifurcation or this type of bifurcation. So you don't technically even need to use the type 1 model. Okay. So is everything good?
In the first part, I mean that H varies over time or over N or with N with the population size.
What's your question? Can you repeat your question, please?
So in the first one, does H vary with time independent of population size, or do you mean that it
that's a very good question. Right now, let us stick to this. But if you think that must be considered, write a note why you should do it. Okay. That's a very good point. Let us, for the time being, assume you're right that there could be, changes in behavior of harvesters as N changes. A very, very interesting point. In fact, it's actually worth thinking. See, harvesters don't know the model, right? Right, but they want. What do they want to do? They want to harvest as much as possible, right? So when N goes down, they know when it's going down. But should they stop harvesting? But when should they stop harvesting is not very clear, right? Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. Okay, fine. I'll stop now. Start working on it. If you have more questions, I will visit your groups. I'm hoping that you can do all of this by 4:30. It's 2:45 now. How much time do you think you will need? So I'm hoping that if you all finish by 4:15, we can even do a quick round of presentations like we did in the first few lab sessions. Okay, but we will take a call on that depending on how much progress you have made. Okay, otherwise it will be a submission again. Okay, so now before we go forward, I have one. Let's finalize the midterm exam timetable. Is that fine? Okay, I will open we'll open the poll and find out how many people have picked what. Okay, 41 people have responded. Is there anybody who is crediting but hasn't responded?
Okay. I haven't responded.
Who is this?
Praveen. I'm a 4th year undergrad. I'm creating it.
So I'm assuming you're with all times then, okay?
So actually, I had an issue with one of my other courses, which are planning to schedule midterm at Friday evening after the fight. So that's why I wasn't sure. They haven't also finalized that.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
anytime Friday should be fine.
Okay.
I can manage. It's not a problem.
So of the 41 people who have responded, assuming you're 42 now, 38 people are okay with Friday 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. So who are the 4 people who are not okay?
Sir, I am. I have
Aranya?
yeah.
You said you're coming back from
yeah.
home and you will have administrative work. Okay. Anybody else? Who are the other 3 people who have a problem? Friday 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Or did you accidentally did not choose it? I mean, I can check who hasn't picked it, but it will be some work for me to find out.
Hello.
Yeah.
This is Ankush.
Ankush, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just had an exam on the same day, so.
But that's not a good enough.
Yeah.
Not the same time, no? Then it's
Yeah. Like, I mean, I
Then-
saw the mail from you after I submitted the form, so.
Okay, fine. So who are the other 2 people now?
So I don't mind. I'm one of them.
Okay. So you're also okay. Fine. Who is the last person?
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah.
Who is the last person? Pavitra, is that you?
No, sir.
No. Okay, so we don't know who is the last person. So Aranya, so right now so it is still possible that by 3:30 you will be free, right? Aranya,
Not so sure because there will be a doctor checkup maybe, which I am guessing that in the slot of 3 to 3:30. After that, I will be returning to the hostel. I think I will be free by 4.
Okay.
Is my guess.
Okay, so then you just start half an hour late. Is that fine? Or even if it's 4:30, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So then we will finalize 3:30 p.m. next Friday. So we'll. So do you want to have the class that day at all, or not? For example, you can ask any questions that you have before the exam, or do you just want to have your mind freed and therefore prepare and then come to the exam at that time? But I know I will be available for anybody who wants to ask any questions at that point of time. Is that fine? Let's keep it that way. We'll keep it open question answer session for anybody interested. But otherwise, those who don't want can just join at 3:30 p.m. Okay.
What's the general format of these exams?
Oh, no, I have no clue.
No clue. Oh, okay, good.
Okay. If I find out, I will tell you. If there is anything that you need to know, I will tell you. Because I have never done any online exam in my life. So this is the first time. So I have absolutely as clueless as you are all. But maybe you know better than I do how these things go. Okay. Okay, cool. So we have finalized the exam now. So please continue with the continue with your work now. And I'm hoping that if we have some results by 4:15, we can discuss that. Okay.
I had one doubt.
Yeah, hi, Vivek. Yes.
So when you say H varies as time, does it vary because N varies with time, or H explicitly varies with?
That was also the question that somebody asked, as H time dependence depends on N. Let's assume right now there is no N dependence on H. Okay. Let's assume it's an extraneous variable that's increasing with time.
We are assuming some like environmental factors which varies with time and.
So just think of why would it vary with time? Now imagine these are actually harvesters like fishermen, right? They have found this nice, amazing place. So they, the other harvesters in the neighboring, the other fishermen in the neighboring lake. Let's say they are catching some 5 units of fish per day, whereas the new one are catching 10 units per day. Then okay, because it's a capital K is 10, right? So I'm sort of taking it as a proxy here. So what will people now do? People now start moving here, no? That's one way to think about it, as an entirely external factor. And that's the way we modeled anyway.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so I will leave you. I won't visit any rooms for next half an hour, and then I'll come and start visiting. And if everybody is done with reasonable degree by 4:15, 4:20, we can have a short presentation for everyone. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm going to resume recording. So I've forgotten. Okay. 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 Maybe I should first maybe unshare and do this. Okay. Let me. So this is the first one. Did anybody try other functions, more complicated functions?
So
did somebody try
sine.
Sinusoidal? Okay. So H0 sine omega t, something like this.
Our group used sine square to get only positive
Yes, sir.
value.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Okay. Fine. Sine
Our
square.
group tried like a sigmoidal curve.
H is basically some like t divided t square by some t0 square plus t square, this kind of a function. It doesn't have to be this form, but roughly what you're saying is that H versus T looks like this. Huh? Is that what you mean by sigmoidal curve?
Yes, sir. Just what you've written down, but multiplied by h naught.
Multiplied by H naught. Okay. So maybe the one that whoever has done 3, can you show? And let's say whoever has done 2, which group? How many groups have done 2? Something like 2.
A slight modification. We have
That's fine. Don't worry about the functional forms. As long as it's periodic is what I'm saying. Okay.
Group 9.
9. One. Who else?
Group 2.
So group 4 has
Group 5.
Okay. So several groups have done. Maybe group 9. Can you show 2? Please share the screen. Now the only thing is how will I see yours when you're sharing? I don't see an option to see yours. You have shared now? Have you shared now, group 9? I'll just stop. That's easy. Group 9, can you please share? Okay, excellent. Okay, this is sinusoidal, and you find population is going up on. Have you done this for multiple amplitudes of this one? I can't hear you. Harshad, I can't hear you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Have you done for multiple amplitude values?
Yes, sir.
And okay. So basically, N just also shows similar pattern. Is that right? Is that what you find?
Yes, sir.
Is there something more interesting that happens?
Yeah, so for a very large amplitude, it can drive it to extinction.
Okay. Okay. And does it make sense?
Yeah. So
Okay.
one interesting thing is that even if the amplitude of the sinusoid reaches above the critical HC at some point, provided that it comes back down soon enough, the population is sustained.
So that means the frequency also matters. Huh?
Correct.
Frequency also matters.
So
Okay.
about the frequency, our group, we had done different things. So we found the population equilibrium timescale, and we took the frequency. We took different timescales for the sinusoidal curve.
Excellent.
One being the timescale of my equilibrium timescale. Another being timescale which is 1/10 of that.
Okay.
So we found two different.
Another one being 10 times the frequency also.
Yeah.
10 times the time scale. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we found them to be much different in each case.
Can you show them?
Yeah, just a minute.
Those 3 frequencies.
It's for Holling's type 1 model. But even then, I think the results are similar.
Okay. Do you see a phase lag between your driver seasonality, which is harvesting seasonality, and the response, which is the population size? Do you think there's a phase lag? Do you understand my question, by the way, about phase lag?
So we got a phase lag, sir.
Okay. In fact, if there was no phase
Yes,
lag,
sir,
would
yeah,
the
there
frequency
is.
matter at all? There has to be some phase lag, right?
No phase lag, also frequency would matter. I'm like, because frequency matters, we get phase lag as well, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And also we've taken initial H naught to be 0 and K to
As
be
to-
maximum.
What
So
do you mean
that-
by initial H not to be 0? You mean the lowest
Sorry.
value to be 0?
Sorry, initial H at time t is equals to 0 is 0, But initial population density is K, right? So that also contributes to the.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Those are reasonable initial conditions to work with, right? Okay. Okay. So it basically varies. There is actually in the bottom right one, you see a significant phase lag. I suspect that will be the case when the system responds slowly compared to seasonality. Is that right?
Yeah. So this is 1 by 100. This is comparable rate.
This is actually comparable.
So this first graph is when it's much more slower.
When the response is, what is slower, you mean?
The harvesting. So the harvesting rate is 1 minus cos over here. So we did it 1 minus cos because you had asked initial harvesting to be 0.
So don't worry about the functional forms.
So here the time scale of harvesting is around 4,000 time steps. And we found by graphing the population growth that time for equilibrium is around 400 time steps.
Okay.
So this is harvesting is much more slower than the population.
Okay.
So,
So what happens in that case?
Decaying. We found the decaying dies off slowly.
See, the thing is, if the system is the seasonality is much slower than system response, basically, what is the conclusion? What happens?
So for another seasonal harvesting, say for example a forest, where here now the time scale of harvesting is much faster than my forest growth. So over here we found that the population maintains equilibrium is non-zero, but oscillates because of the harvesting rate.
Okay. Okay.
So this is something like a forest which grows at time scale decade, and my harvesting is every year.
Okay. 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 So I mean, I don't think I got the exact answer for my question, but there's something all of you to think about. The issue of time scale. The system has some intrinsic time scale, right? It has some intrinsic time scale over which it returns to equilibrium when perturbed. But seasonality itself is a time scale that you're adding. Okay. Now think of 3 scenarios when the time scale of equilibrium is equal to seasonal time scale. And the other one extreme from that is, seasonality is much faster than the equilibrium time scale. Like as you rightly pointed out, a forest in a seasonal rainfall, right? Seasonal rainfall is over 1 year period, but the forest recovery is often 10 decades. And the other extreme being the seasonality happens such a the seasonality is much slower than the particular recovery rates of the system. So that might be, for example, like grasses. Grasses grow pretty fast within the seasonal time scale, right? And maybe even smaller organisms, they grow much faster than the same time scale over with resources and harvesting and all change. So think of all these 3 cases and how the dynamics happens. Okay, so
so another thing which we haven't done it, but I think it's worth exploring is the volume of harvesting. So over here, we had just kept the amplitude constant and changed the frequency. So if we had kept the volume of harvesting constant over the harvesting period, I think the results will be different.
More like a square wave kind of a thing. Is that what you mean?
As in,
what do you mean volume of harvesting? Volume is basically the entire function times integrated over some time scale, right?
Yeah, integrated over time. So I have one sinusoidal wave. If I keep the volume of the sinusoid constant while I squeeze the sine wave, so it's like the amount of trees or fish harvested being constant.
Yeah. Per cycle, right? Yeah. Okay, sounds good. So I won't pass the third one. Okay, I think let's just leave that the sigmoidal one. Okay, now that's about the. Is there anything interesting you found about the time varying season time varying harvesting apart from what we just discussed now?
It takes a bit more time to reach equilibrium, right?
With seasonality.
I'm talking about like the sigmoidal one. Yeah.
Sigmoidal takes even a bit more because there's a sudden rapid increase in H in some small window, but the system now will take its own, it will now track and eventually reach that corresponding equilibrium. So by the way, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the idea of something called
adiabatic approximation. Have you heard of the word adiabatic approximation? Or something called quasi steady state approximation. Have you heard of these terms? Adiabatic comes in
like in thermodynamics, yes, sir.
exactly, right? Yeah, what does that mean in thermodynamics?
I'm like generally in very, very small steps, the equilibrium is like maintained continuously.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were to apply that idea here, so what does that mean? It means which of the three regimes does it actually correspond to? Let us say tau is the return time of the system. Okay. Okay, and let's say tau h is the harvesting time scale. Or rather, let's also look at the other way. Now, alpha is the rate, return rate. Okay, whereas beta is the harvesting rate. Okay, or change in the harvesting rate. Sorry, it's not just harvesting rate. Change in the harvesting rate. Okay, that is, if basically if this is changing very, very slow, if this rate, if this beta is really small, right, meaning h is changing very slow, what does that mean? Between the changes between the time it takes to change h, system has actually reached equilibrium. Okay, in other words, tau h is much larger. Okay, meaning the time taken for h to change, if it is much larger than the return time of the system, then what happens? For every h, system has reached equilibrium. So that corresponds to an adiabatic approximation of quasi steady state approximation. Okay, but however, what probably happens in real world is that h, of course, changes much rapidly, sometimes comparable, which is why that this time scale issues become important. Okay. Okay, that's about the first part of the assignment today. What about the second part?
Sir, sorry, sir, we had a question actually.
Is it okay if we just discuss stochasticity part a bit? And then,
okay, sure.
Because we have only 15 minutes now. So stochasticity. Now tell me, so this is the model we have, right? I had asked you to stick to rescaled parameter values. Okay. So now tell me, how did you introduce stochasticity? What were the different ways that you did?
Our group used a random function, uniform random function actually.
What is a random function?
Random number.
Random number.
For the, we used random number.
Where do you use that random number?
We added it for h harvesting rate.
Okay. So you're basically saying h is equal to some h constant plus
we've added a
random number, right?
Yeah, which varies from 0 to 1, minus 1 to 1.
The final value of h will eventually is from 0 to 1.7. We've taken the range of random numbers.
Basically, h value varies around h naught randomly by some percentage of h naught.
Let's not display this. Okay. So just 1 second. I have to just, I'll come back in 1 second. Okay. Hi, I'm back now. Okay, so what were the properties? So I am assuming many groups would have done this. Is that right? More than one group.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now what were the properties of
So
eta t?
actually, we didn't add noise at every single step. We added a larger noise at like after some steps.
Okay,
So
just
to give some
define.
time
So
to-
basically, many of you have chosen different properties of what I call eta t.
Yeah.
So then just tell me different properties of eta t. So say whichever group has done something like this, just tell me what was the property one by one. Any group who wants to go first.
So we've taken h naught is equals to 0.7.
Don't worry about the specific numbers. What are the properties of random number? Is was my question.
Yes, we used a random number generator in R itself, ranging from, so the random number ranges from minus 0.7 to plus 1.
Okay.
And eta tau is like, we changed the percentage. Like for some cases, we've taken 10% of that random value and
Did you say 1.0?
2 plus 1. Yeah,
correct.
and this, yeah, but in percentages, sometimes we've taken plus 10% of this value, and in some cases plus 50% of this value.
50% of this range.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So basically, your range was determined by the value of h0 itself.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
So I should probably call this maybe then h0 to minus h0 to
yes.
Some value. What is this upper bound that you were choosing? What was the rationale for upper bound?
We just took 1 in this case, but we've tried, sorry, we can take plus h naught also. Just h
Some
naught.
random h max.
Yes.
Okay, but what they uniformly distributed in this range?
Sorry?
Yes, sir. Correct.
What the numbers?
Uniformly
Okay.
distributed.
Uniform distribution.
Yes.
So there were few instances where the h value went to 0.
Okay. Just
But doesn't that not make sense, like in natural system, to have it uniformly distributed?
we can discuss that. Is it uniform or not? Yeah, you're right. Is it right? We don't know. It might depend on the system that we are looking at. So, but this is what you have done. No? Some h0 to. So, but here is a very interesting thing that happens the moment you do this, right? If hm is not equal to h0, what happens to the mean of eta t? Do you know the meaning of this angular brackets? It just means the average of this random number. What will happen to this if it's a uniform distribution between h0 minus h0 and hm? What will be the average of this?
hm plus h naught, h0
hm minus h0 by 2.
hm minus h0 by 2.
Right. So the moment this
because
happens,
minus
what
of
happens?
minus is plus, no?
You're looking at the average. No? If imagine if the
Yeah, so we'll get minus of minus, right?
if it was a minus 1 to plus 1, the average will be 0, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right. If it was a minus h0 to h0, the average will be 0.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So this will be this. So now imagine, now just think what has happened. You started with an actual value of h0, but you have actually shifted the mean a bit by this range. I just want you to be aware of this. Okay. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Basically, your random number has actually shifted the mean of your harvesting rate. Okay. So usually whenever we add a random number, we try to avoid moving the mean. We assume some mean and always try to define a random number such that it has a mean of 0. Okay. But I'm not saying what you have done today is wrong. Today you're free to do anything you want to. Okay. There's nothing wrong in doing this, by the way. It's also totally fine, but you have to be aware of the fact that your random number actually has shifted the mean. Okay. Okay. What about, so, and of course, in a uniform distribution, the moment you define the lower and upper limits, it also gives you a variance. There'll be some variance of this. Okay. I think I have forgotten the formula. I think it's, if I'm right, it's hm square minus h0 square by 12. Okay, this one. Okay, so anybody else have chosen other properties of eta t? So one of you have chosen a uniform distribution of random numbers between h0 and hm. How about others?
We chose Gaussian with mean 0 and standard deviation equal to amplitude of h. We had a periodically fluctuating h.
Mean 0 and standard deviation of?
H is the maximum amplitude of our periodically fluctuating.
Variance is equal to h0, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not where, yeah. Yeah, variance.
Is that right? Okay.
No, standard deviation is h.
Standard deviation is h. Where h is same as, so how does this h relate to the previous h we have? Because I'm writing h is equal to this, no?
So sorry, h naught. It's h naught.
Oh, basically the standard deviation is equal to the baseline.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Do you see the problem?
We tried varying h also. Like instead of h naught, we tried putting h, but
no, but this is fine. So basically, no, let's just understand this one by one. So the average of this will be 0 by definition, right? And the variance of this will be
h naught square.
H naught square. But all of you know the properties of random numbers, Gaussian random numbers. Basically, Gaussian random numbers have this property that if eta is your random number, the most of the random numbers occur at 0 because mean is 0. Okay, and 99.99% of them land in the interval of -3 sigma to +3 sigma. Okay, where this is basically sigma square. Okay, so which basically means that in your model, Amit, so your range go from h0 is your baseline mean, right?
Yes, yes.
So it goes from h0 plus or minus 3h0, right?
So no, our baseline was actually periodically fluctuating. So h naught, that was
so h naught is also periodically varying.
No, h naught, no, h naught is the amplitude, the maximum amplitude of our wave.
Okay.
So it's h naught sine omega t plus or minus 3h.
Oh, you had a sine omega t there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But you do realize what's happening. So what's the range of your the left hand side now? Left hand side can actually, what's the minimum value of left hand side? If there was no periodicity,
minus 2h naught.
Minus 2h naught, and maximum value can be 4h naught. Does that make sense that we have a minus 2h naught?
Yes.
It doesn't, right? Okay, fine, no problem. And
our h naught was actually much smaller than r. It was
r is 1 anyway, no?
Yeah. So our h naught was either.
So grazing is supposed to kill, reduce the, increase the mortality rate. It shouldn't add. If h becomes net negative, then it actually comes to become adding.
Yeah, no, we always use absolute terms also. So what we did was after.
Oh, okay. Then you're changing the distribution. The moment you use absolute numbers, you are changing the distribution that you started off.
Yes.
That's fine. Okay, basically the idea is whenever you're adding numbers, keep track of the range of numbers that actually gives rise to. Okay, now I'm sure many of you have chosen many other things. I remember others saying eta t was a, it was a burst, more like a pulse. Once in a while, basically it's basically 0, 0, 0, 0, and suddenly there's a pulse. Okay, is that right? There were different amplitudes people were choosing, and some people had made the distance between them constant. Some people had made the distance between them also a random thing. So there are many, many possibilities. I'm not going to pick you on that. All of them are valid answers, and you will not be penalized for choosing anything. Okay, as long as you justify it. Okay, now I would like one or two of you to show your results on this. Who hasn't shown so far? Which group hasn't shown any results so far?
We just
group number 2.
Yeah, we didn't show the graphs. Is that what you
Yes, sir.
Group number 2, can you show for this part? So, when you're submitting, you don't need to change anything you have done. Just write up cleanly and submit. Okay. I don't expect that you change the functional forms you have chosen and so on, unless maybe it's something like negative values of h, in which case we want to change. So, did any of you observe collapse of ecosystem? Did any of you find in any of your implementations? Okay, so this looks like a relatively small amount of stochasticity because the time series doesn't have much fluctuations.
Yes, sir. But if we increase the
can you show a case of where you have increased?
Yeah, so here the k determines how much percentage fluctuation happen with respect to h0. So if it is 10%, we don't see any huge variation from the table equilibrium. But if it's like 50% fluctuation,
some.
so there is fluctuation that's happening for type 1 function. And similarly for type 2 function, it's the same, sir. If we increase the fluctuation level, the magnitude of fluctuations change.
Okay. And you kept 0.7 for all of your results.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How about group 4? Do you want to share something? Do you have something?
Sir, we couldn't get to stochasticity part.
No problem. Absolutely no problem. Okay. How about group 6?
Sure. We did actually something a little different. We added stochasticity outside, not to H, but
Oh, that's also very good. Okay. Very nice. Okay.
I'll just share my screen.
Okay, sure. I understand what you have done. Okay. So this is, we were just discussing stochasticity to H, right? You know, if I go back to, okay.
So we added it to the entire right-hand side.
Okay. Okay. To the entire population.
Yeah, and we use the normal distribution to define that stochasticity.
Okay.
Numbers in a normal distribution with mean at 0, and we tried at standard deviation 0.1 and 0.2. And this is kind of what we got.
Okay. That so now this, if you show this to somebody and tell this is actually a real population time series, will they believe? This is, maybe they will, who knows.
It is believable, right?
It is believable. Yeah, I believe it is believable. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Great. So we're running out of time today. So we'll, I think, so I will give up to 2 p.m. tomorrow to submit your lab assignment today. But I don't spend too much time. Whatever you have done, just summarize and then submit. Okay. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I want to discuss this in depth tomorrow. Okay. Okay. So I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Unless somebody has a question to, so people can feel free to leave now, but I'm happy to answer any questions people may have. Rashi, you have a question?
The stochasticity part, right? Like you had mentioned that we had to take like the Y thing, but we took it as N. I mean, although we have not had any like variations in R, so is that okay, or do you want us to like redo that part?
No problem. This is all minor things, but focus on, don't worry. I did tell you to focus on the rescaled equation, but it's possible you may have missed my suggestion, but that's not a problem at all. Please don't redo for that reason alone.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Vishnu.
Yeah.
So when we say that H is varying as time and we choose some functional form, is it necessary that we choose something that is continuous, or say there are harvester for some period of time and then they give certain time for them to grow or cultivate and harvest. So then we can choose sine function itself, but when sine goes to negative, we can we just remove the H part from in the population dynamic.
So you can, for example, choose a square wave. I mean, there's nothing that fundamentally stops you from doing anything.
If we use square, then there will still be harvesting.
But the bottom of the square can be 0. Right? For example, here, right? So we can do this, right? If H0 is the mean, you can do this, right?
Oh. But again, this is like
to always stay positive.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? So what might happen is if you have very sharp edges like this, typically the integration and all become, from a mathematical point of view, not so well defined. But numerically, most algorithms will work.
Sir, this was a question that our group had. This was actually a conceptual question. I'll
Who is this?
just.
Bharadwaj.
This is Harshit, sir, and our group is 4. So 1 second. I'll just
We're
share
5,
it.
by the way.
Our group 5.
Oh,
It doesn't matter.
Sorry, group 5. Sorry, group 5. Is my screen visible?
Yes, I can see this.
So this was when we took we were actually considering oscillatory population, and we were considering H naught as 3.005.
Okay.
So the oscillation seemed to like I mean, you can see a gradual decrease in the mean, and then there's just this sudden drop that happened now all of a sudden. So we were trying to figure out why this is happening. I mean, we plotted the logistic growth and the H function as well, and we weren't able to exactly explain why there's a sudden drop.
So what was the formula for H that you were using? What was the temporally changing H you were using?
H naught into 1 plus 0.25 sine omega t.
H naught into 1 plus 0.25 sine. And
Yes,
H naught was 3.005.
Yes, sir.
What was omega? Omega is some 100 times.
Pi by
50
10.
times.
Pi by 10, sir.
Okay. So I mean, I can see that if I look at the top of the sine curve of the black line there, okay, that is slowly coming down for some reason, right? Is it?
Yes.
Slowly decreasing, and suddenly then it collapses. Okay. I don't know why it's happening. You know, I mean, you should. So 3.025 is the bifurcation point, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
3.025. You have 0.02 units away from it. And what was the amplitude of your sinusoidal wave? Can you remember? 0.25.
0.25.
Then that is sufficient to potentially push you across, right? You see what's happening?
Sir. Yes, sir.
But then,
although your mean is above the bifurcation point, but your amplitude can take you up to 3.25.
Yes, sir. We get that.
So you have to unmute yourself again.
So our question is rather, so at the maximum values of the H, where to go? At the maximum values of the H, it would be above and it would push you towards extinction. But then the H comes down, right? As in after that you rise again, which is why it's slowly coming down is what we thought, but we can't explain the collapse.
So one possibility is that so when you are very close to the bifurcation point, if I can share my screen, I'm just speculating here. I could be easily wrong, okay? Because I need to do this myself to be super sure. So if I go to this slide, okay. So your value of H0 is very close to this green point here, right? Right. Yes, you were basically H0 is somewhere. Your H0 is somewhere close to HC, but just below, just maybe before that. Okay. And then what's happening is it's going back and forth like this.
Yes.
Right. Correspondingly, what's happening? Your state variable is probably the mean values here, but it's going up and down like this, right? But what might happen is it might cross this blue boundary. And the moment it crosses blue boundary, it's way down way hill. If it stays within this blue boundary, it will come back. But if it stays beyond blue boundary for sufficiently long time, even when you revert, that's the whole point. Even when you revert, you may not be able to revert. You may not be able to come back to this, right? You would have probably crossed this blue boundary for sufficiently long time in your lower part of the H, when the H is very high, and the higher part of it, That's one hypothesis I have. So for example, if you now reduce your amplitude, you should not find this result. Only at some minimum amplitude with you should be able to find this collapse.
So we're left of the green point.
You are just
Or
left of the green point. HC for the parameters
right.
we have chosen is 3.025. So HC is 3.025. No, I just made a verbal calculation at that time. HC is basically k plus 1 whole square by 4k.
Yeah, that would make sense, I think.
Okay.
No, but so we cross that HC or we reach HC several times, right? Because our H is oscillating much faster.
But you also
than...
began with k high, right?
Right.
You began with the population size of high. If you start with low, same thing will happen much faster.
Right.
Yeah, we should probably try playing with the amplitude.
Try playing with the amplitude, that will explain.
Yeah. Thank
Amplitude
you.
and frequency both might matter. Any more questions? Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to end.